want you to picture something. You wake up on a Tuesday morning, pour your coffee, walk to your back door to let the dog out, and your fence is gone. Not damaged, not leaning, gone. Posts pulled from the ground, panels stacked in a pile. On the edge of your property line, and a single HOA violation notice taped to your back door like a parking ticket. That was my Tuesday. Let me back up. I had built that fence 2 summers ago. It was a 6-foot cedar privacy fence. Beautiful. Solid, stained a warm honey brown that I spent an entire weekend getting just right. I built it to give my backyard some privacy because, as it turned out, my neighbor on the left side, who also happened to be the HOA board president, a man I'll call Gerald, had a habit of standing at his kitchen window and staring into my yard while I was trying to enjoy it. I wasn't imagining it. My wife noticed it. My guests noticed it. Gerald noticed nothing wrong with it at all, so I built the fence. I submitted the proper paperwork to the HOA, the design, the material, the height, the color. I waited the required 14 business days. I received no objection in writing, and I built the fence. For 8 months, everything was fine. The fence stood, the dog had a yard, I had privacy. Gerald had to find a new hobby, and then, apparently, Gerald found the time to go back through the HOA rule book, the full 47-page document that nobody has ever read completely, and discovered a clause. Section 9, paragraph 4, subsection C. Fences on corner-adjacent lots must not exceed 5 feet in height if they fall within the community sightline corridor. My fence was 6 feet. My lot, Gerald had decided, qualified as corner-adjacent under a definition so stretched it barely held together. And just like that, my fence was a violation, not a warning, not a request to modify. They simply came and took it down while I was at work. I want to be clear about something because I know how these stories can sound. I did not go straight to revenge. I am not that person, or at least I tried not to be. I gave the system a real, genuine chance to work before I decided to work around it. I called the HOA management office the same morning. I found the fence gone. I was transferred 3 times. I left 2 voicemails. I sent an email with photos of the original approval paperwork, the submitted design documents, and a clear, professional explanation of why I believed the removal was unlawful and the violation classification was incorrect. I got a response 4 days later. It was a form letter. It acknowledged my concern, referenced Section 9, Paragraph 4, subsection C, and informed me that the removal had been authorized by the board and was final. It also informed me that I would be billed for the removal labor, which came to $340. They took my fence, and then they sent me a bill for taking it. I attended the next HOA board meeting. I brought my paperwork. I brought photos. I had printed out the exact clause they cited and highlighted every word. I stood up during the public comment period and made my case calmly, clearly, and with documentation. Gerald sat at the head of the table the entire time with the expression of a man who had already decided the outcome before I opened my mouth. When I finished, he thanked me for my comments and moved on to the next agenda item. No vote, no discussion, no acknowledgement. I sat in my car afterward for a long time, and I made a decision. If the HOA wanted to play the rulebook game, I was going to learn every single rule in that book, and I was going to use them. Here is what I discovered when I actually read all 47 pages of the HOA's governing document. And I mean all of it, every clause, every footnote, every subsection that nobody ever bothers with because they assume the HOA is handling things fairly. Spoiler, they are not always handling things fairly. What I found was this. While the HOA restricted fences above 5 feet, it placed absolutely no restrictions on hedges, trees, shrubs, or natural plantings. Not a single word. No height limit. No density limit. No species restrictions. Nothing. Because whoever wrote the document 30 years ago was thinking about wooden fences and chain link, not about what a determined homeowner with a truck, a garden center credit card, and a very specific grudge could accomplish in a single weekend. I also found something else. The HOA's own rules required that the board president maintain a standard of conduct becoming of community leadership, including not using board authority for personal benefit. Gerald had used his position as board president to classify my lot as corner adjacent, a classification that, when I checked the county property records and the neighborhood survey maps, was not supported by any official document. My lot was not corner adjacent by any legal or surveying definition. Gerald had invented the classification. And I had it in writing because the HOA's meeting minutes, which are public record for any member, documented that Gerald alone had made the determination without a full board vote. So here was my plan in 2 parts. Part 1, replace the fence with something the HOA couldn't touch. Part 2, use what I had found in those meeting minutes to make Gerald's position very, very uncomfortable. I went to the garden center on a Saturday morning with a trailer. I came home with 30 Leyland cypress trees, fast-growing, dense, evergreen, and capable of reaching 20, 30, 40 feet if left alone. I planted them in a perfectly legal, perfectly unregulated row along my entire property line. Every one of them sat on my land, inside every applicable setback, violating absolutely nothing in the 47-page rulebook. Within weeks, they were already taller than my old fence had been. By the end of summer, they would be a wall of green so thick you couldn't see daylight through them. Gerald's kitchen window view, gone, forever, and growing. It took Gerald exactly 11 days to notice the trees. I know it was 11 days because that's when the first letter arrived. Not a form letter this time, but one that had clearly been written in some agitation because there were 2 typos in the first paragraph, and the margins were slightly off-center. Like someone had typed it quickly and hit print without checking. The letter informed me that my hedge installation was under review and that the board reserved the right to issue a violation if the plantings were found to conflict with community standards. I wrote back the same day. I asked them to cite, specifically with section and paragraph numbers, which rule the trees violated. I reminded them that the governing document contained no restrictions on natural plantings, and I attached the relevant pages with the absence of any such restriction clearly highlighted. I also, in the same letter, raised a separate concern. I noted that the recent fence removal had been authorized by a single board member rather than a full board vote, as required under the HOA's own procedural guidelines. I noted that the lot classification used to justify the removal did not appear in any county records or official survey. I noted that I had documented all of this and had shared my findings with a real estate attorney, which was true. I had sent an email summary to a lawyer friend who had confirmed that what I was describing sounded like an abuse of authority and potentially actionable. I suggested, politely, that the board might want to revisit both the fence removal and the $340 bill before things became more formal. The board held an emergency meeting. I was not invited, but meeting minutes are public record, and I received them upon request. Gerald had recused himself from the agenda item. The remaining board members voted unanimously to reverse the violation classification, return the fence, materials, waive the removal fee, and issue a written apology. The minutes also noted, in dry administrative language, that Gerald's unilateral authority to classify properties had been removed pending a full procedural review. Gerald did not attend the following month's board meeting, or the one after that. By the 3rd month, he had quietly resigned his position, citing personal time constraints. I got my fence back. I got my apology in writing. I got the $340 waived. And I kept the trees, because at that point I genuinely liked them, and because Leyland cypress trees do not care about HOA politics, they just grow. But here's the thing I want you to actually hear, because this story is not really about revenge. It's about something more important than that. Rules only have power when the people subject to them don't understand them, as well as the people enforcing them. Gerald counted on me not reading the 47-page document. He counted on me being frustrated enough to give up after the board meeting. He counted on the imbalance of information, him knowing the rules, me just experiencing the consequences of them. The moment I closed that gap, everything shifted. Not because I found a magic loophole, because I did the work he assumed I wouldn't do. So if you're in an HOA or any situation where someone with a little authority is using it in ways that don't feel right, here is my honest advice. Get the governing documents, read them, all of them. Check what requires a vote versus what one person can decide alone. Check what is actually restricted versus what someone is telling you is restricted. Request meeting minutes. They are almost always available to members. And then, if something is wrong, document everything in writing before you say a word out loud. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to be more prepared than the person who is counting on you not to